Vera Caldwell signed her divorce papers on a Tuesday. No tears, no screaming, just a pen, a judge, and the quiet sound of 17 years folding in on themselves like wet cardboard. Her husband kept the house, the dog, the savings account, and the friends who never called back. She kept a duffel bag, a cracked phone screen, and $6,000 in a checking account that used to hold six figures. 3 weeks later, she did something no one understood. She drove 4 hours south to a town called Brackenridge, Virginia, population 800 and shrinking, and she bought a mansion. Cash. Full price. No inspection. The listing had been active for 7 years. The photos showed ivy choking the columns, shattered second-floor windows, and a courtyard where weeds split the stone like veins. The previous owner was a man named Enzo Castile, a name that showed up in 3 federal indictments and 0 convictions. People around town called the property cursed. Realtors called it unsellable. Vera called it hers. But here is what the listing never mentioned. On the top floor, behind a window no one could explain, an amber light glowed every night at the same hour. And on the day Vera walked through the front door for the first time, she found fresh footprints in dust that should have been untouched for years. Stay with me, because the first thing she found was not treasure. It was a warning meant for her alone.
The envelope sat on the marble like it had been placed there by someone with steady hands and no rush. I saw it the second I crossed the threshold, not tucked away, not hidden, centered on the foyer floor, white against gray dust, clean against 7 years of nothing. My name was on the front, not printed, handwritten, Vera Caldwell. The ink was fresh. I had been inside this house for less than 10 minutes. My boots left tracks in the dust behind me. I had already noticed that. What I had not noticed until I turned back toward the door was that another set of tracks ran parallel to mine. Same direction, same stride length, like someone had walked beside me the whole time, except I had walked in alone. I set my jaw. I did not pick up the envelope. Not yet. The courtyard behind me still hummed with the last heat of September. I had parked my truck on the gravel circle and stood there for a full minute before stepping through the iron gate. All the air tasted like copper pennies and wet stone. A brittle weed scratched against my ankle as I crossed toward the front steps, and even in direct sunlight, the temperature dropped 3 degrees the moment I passed under the archway. Kellen Marsh, the realtor, had met me at the county clerk's office that morning. Young guy, maybe 30. Warm smile, the kind that came a little too fast and stayed a little too long. But he shook my hand with both of his and said congratulations like I had just won something instead of spent my last real money on a building most people crossed the street to avoid. First buyer in 7 years, he said. Brackenridge has been waiting for someone brave enough. I did not feel brave. I felt like a woman with no options making the only choice left that felt like mine. He handed me the keys, 2 of them, one for the front door, one for a padlock on the east wing. Then he paused.
The property has personality, he said. You will hear things. Old houses talk. Most of the time, they are just settling. Most of the time, I repeated. He smiled again. Same warmth, same speed. Call me if you need anything. I did not plan to call him. Inside, the mansion opened up like a church that had lost its congregation. 20-foot ceilings. Crown molding so detailed it could have been carved by hand. A staircase that split into 2 directions at the landing and at the top. As a window I could not see clearly because the light behind it burned amber, even though it was noon and the sun was on the other side of the building. I whispered my first rule out loud. Say what you see. Say what is real. I saw dust. I saw broken glass. I saw wallpaper peeling in long strips like sunburned skin. I saw a chandelier hanging by a single bolt. I saw a sedan parked in the courtyard through the side window, rusted burgundy, something from the 40s or 50s, and its trunk slightly open.
and I saw my breath. In September. Inside a house with no air conditioning. That was when I turned around and noticed the footprints. They ran from the front door to exactly where I stood. Same boot size, same weight distribution, same hesitation at the second step where the floorboard dipped. But they could not have been mine because they came from the opposite direction, toward the west wing, where the hallway bent out of sight and the dust was thicker. I said it out loud. Someone was here before me. Recently. I reached for my phone. No signal. I checked twice. Nothing. The nearest cell tower was probably 10 miles south, past the ridge line. I was alone with a dead phone in a dead house that had already proven it was not as empty as it should have been. I looked at the envelope again. I crouched. I picked it up. I turned it over. No return address. No stamp. Just my name in handwriting I did not recognize. Inside was a photograph. Color, a high resolution, printed on glossy paper. It showed the front of this house, taken from the courtyard, from almost the exact spot where I had parked my truck. And standing in the frame, small but unmistakable, was me. Blue coat, duffel bag over my shoulder, one hand reaching for the gate. The photo had been taken no more than 10 minutes ago. Below the image, in the same steady handwriting, 5 words. Walk away while you can. My hands did not shake. I want to be clear about that. And my hands have not shaken since the day I watched my husband change the locks on my own front door while I stood on the porch with my keys in my hand, realizing they no longer worked. Something in me hardened that afternoon. Not courage, not anger, just a flat, mathematical certainty that if the world was going to keep pulling things out from under me, I would learn to stand on less. I folded the photo. I put it back in the envelope. I put the envelope in my coat pocket. Then I walked deeper into the house because whoever wrote that note had made one mistake. They assumed I still had somewhere else to go. If you found this photo in an empty house with your name on it, would you run or would you stay? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you think Vera made the right call, hit that like button and buckle in, because what she found next made this letter look like a greeting card.
Hi viewers, before we continue, I have to ask you something personal. Have you ever stayed in the situation everyone told you to leave? Not because you were foolish, but because leaving meant admitting you had nothing left. If that has ever been you, type "I stayed" in the comments. You are not alone, and neither was Vera. Vera Caldwell did not sleep that night. She drove 12 miles back to the Pinecrest Motor Lodge on Route 9, locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle, and sat on the edge of the bed with her phone plugged into the wall, waiting for a signal strong enough to load the county sheriff's number. At 11:47 p.m., she got one bar. She called. A woman answered, sounding like she had been woken from deep sleep. Vera gave her name, the address of the Brackenridge property, and a clear, factual description of what she had found. A handwritten envelope bearing her name, a photograph taken of her within the last hour, 5 words that constituted a direct threat. She spoke slowly. She did not add emotion. She recited facts the way a witness does on a stand, because Vera Caldwell had learned a long time ago that people take you more seriously when your voice stays level. The dispatcher transferred her. A deputy named Ruiz took the call. He listened. He asked 2 questions. Was the door forced open? Was anything stolen? Vera said no to both. He told her to come in the next morning and file a report, and in the meantime, to stay away from the property. Ma'am, that house has been empty 7 years, probably kids messing around. Kids do not print high-resolution photographs, Vera said. There was a pause. Then he said, "Come in tomorrow." She hung up. She did not go to sleep. Instead, she opened her laptop and played back the footage from the body camera she had clipped to her coat pocket before entering the mansion that morning. She was not a paranoid person, But she had spent the last year of her marriage discovering that the man she trusted had been emptying joint accounts, rerouting mail, and recording her conversations without her knowledge. After that, documentation became a reflex. The footage was grainy, low light. The camera bounced as she walked. But at the 3-minute and 12-second mark, just as Vera entered the main foyer, something moved in the reflection of a hallway mirror. A shape, human height. It passed left to right in less than a second, then disappeared behind a wall. Vera paused the footage, rewound, played it again. The shape was there. And on the second viewing, the head angle was different. On the first pass, the figure looked down the hallway. On the second pass, the figure looked directly at the camera. Vera said the words out loud because that was how she kept herself anchored. That is not a glitch. That is a person. That person knew where the camera was. She screenshotted both frames. She emailed them to herself. She emailed them to a second account. Then she opened a notes app and typed a numbered list of every observation from the day. The footprints, the clean envelope, the photograph, the mirror shape, the amber window that had no electrical explanation. At 6:15 a.m., she drove to the Brackenridge Sheriff's Station. Deputy Ruiz was not there, but a woman named Janelle took the report with professional patience and gave Vera a case number she wrote on the back of a gas receipt. Vera drove to the hardware store next. She bought 2 deadbolts, a set of security cameras with local storage, and a crowbar. She arrived at the mansion at 8:40 a.m. The morning light hit the front face of the building and turned the stone the color of old bone. The courtyard was quiet. The sedan sat in the same spot, trunk still slightly open. The iron gate was closed exactly as she had left it. But the board she had nailed over the side entrance the day before was gone. Not broken, not splintered, removed, and placed upright against the wall beside the door, nails facing out, like someone had used a claw hammer and taken their time. Vera stood there for 10 seconds. She counted them. Then she said, "You are telling me you can get in whenever you want. I hear you, but I am not leaving." She installed the first deadbolt on the front door. She installed the second on the east wing padlock entry. She mounted 2 cameras, one facing the courtyard and one covering the main hallway, both recording to a hard drive she locked inside her truck's glove box. Then she walked back inside, crowbar in hand, and headed for the west wing. Because whoever was watching her had made something very clear, they could enter this house whenever they wanted. They could remove her barriers without force. They could photograph her without being seen. But they had not hurt her. They had not stolen from her. They had not damaged her equipment. They were testing her. And Vera Caldwell, who had survived a man who controlled every lock in her life, was done being tested. She reached the west wing hallway. The dust was thicker here. Her flashlight beam caught something on the floor about 20 feet ahead. A single shoe print, fresh, pointing away from her, toward a door at the end of the corridor that she had not opened yet. She gripped the crowbar tighter and kept walking. The mansion breathed differently in the west wing. Vera noticed it the moment she passed the archway that separated the main hall from the older section of the house. The air in the foyer had been cold and still, like standing inside a sealed jar. But here, in the corridor that ran along the back of the property, the air moved. Not a breeze, more like a slow exhale, warm and thick, carrying a smell she could not immediately name. Something organic, oil maybe, old cologne pressed into wood. And underneath it, the faint sweetness of paper left too long in a damp room. The floorboards changed too. In the main hall, they creaked and sagged. Here, they held firm. Vera tapped her boot heel twice. Solid. Someone had reinforced this section of the house at some point, quietly, without touching the visible decay on the surface. The wallpaper peeled the same way. The ceiling plaster crumbled the same way. But the bones of this hallway were stronger than anything she had walked on since arriving. She said it out loud. This part was maintained. Someone cared about what is behind these walls. The corridor stretched 30 feet before turning left. Vera counted doors. 4 on the right, 2 on the left, all closed. She tried the first one on the right. The knob turned, but the door stuck in the frame, swollen with years of humidity. She put her shoulder into it. It gave with a sound like tearing cloth. Inside was a sitting room stripped to nothing. No furniture, no curtains. The window had been boarded from the outside, and the light that came through the cracks painted thin gold lines across the bare floor. Vera swept her flashlight across the walls. Clean, too clean, no cobwebs, no water stains. Someone had wiped these walls within the last year. She moved to the second door. This one opened easily, as if the hinges had been oiled. A bedroom, also empty. But on the far wall, Vera noticed something that stopped her mid-step. The wallpaper pattern did not match. The room was covered in a faded floral print, except for one panel, roughly 4 feet wide and floor to ceiling, where the paper had a different texture. Same color, same general pattern, but the repeat was off by half an inch, and the paper was newer. She ran her fingers along the edge. A seam, not wallpaper over plaster, wallpaper over a panel. And behind the panel, when she pressed her ear against it, she heard something she could not explain. Warmth, radiating through the wall like there was a heating element on the other side, in a house with no functioning electrical system. Vera stepped back. She wrote the room number in her phone. She kept moving. The third door led to a bathroom with a cracked mirror and a cast-iron tub filled with brown water that smelled like rust. The fourth door was locked. She went to the 2 doors on the left side. The first opened to a closet, empty except for a coat hook and a matchbook from a restaurant in Richmond that had closed in 2014. The second door led to a staircase going down. Vera did not go down, not yet. She turned back to the corridor and followed it around the left turn. It ended at a pair of tall double doors, dark wood, no glass. The handles were brass and recently polished. She could see her reflection in them. She pushed both doors open. The room behind them was the largest she had seen in the house. High ceiling, arched windows on 3 sides, and in the center, the only piece of furniture left in the entire west wing. An old sedan. Not a car someone parked here. A car someone had brought here deliberately, through a set of wide cargo doors at the back of the room that had since been walled over with fresh brick. The sedan was the same burgundy she had seen through the window on her first visit, but now she realized there were 2. The one in the courtyard and this one, hidden inside, covered in a thin layer of dust but otherwise pristine. Same make, same model, same year, like a twin hidden away. Vera approached it. The driver's door was unlocked. She opened it and was hit with a wall of scent. Motor oil, leather conditioner, and that same cologne, faded but unmistakable. The kind a man wears when he wants people to remember he was in the room. She popped the trunk. It was slightly ajar already, as if someone had opened it recently and not fully closed it. Inside, she found 3 things. A woman's leather glove, cracked and stiff, a ring of keys with no labels, and the valet parking tag, the kind they give you at a hotel, small and rectangular with a number stamped in gold. The date on the tag was from 8 months ago, and the name printed at the bottom was Castile Holdings, LLC, the same corporation listed on the property deed. Vera held the tag under her flashlight, a corporation that was supposed to be dissolved, a car hidden inside a sealed room, a parking tag from 8 months ago in a mansion that had been empty for 7 years. She tucked the tag into her coat pocket next to the envelope and turned back toward the corridor. As she passed the second bedroom again, she stopped. The warm panel. She pressed her pry bar into the seam at the top and pulled. The panel cracked. Then it gave. And behind it, a narrow corridor, no wider than her shoulders, exhaled air that was 10 degrees colder than the room she stood in. The kind of cold that comes from underground, from depth, from somewhere this house was never supposed to lead. Vera aimed her flashlight into the gap. The corridor sloped downward, and the walls were rough concrete, not plaster. This was not part of the original construction. Someone had built this after the fact, cutting through the foundation like a surgeon opening a chest. She did not enter, not yet. She pulled out her phone. No signal, but the camera worked. She photographed everything: the panel, the seam, the corridor, the slope, the cold air that made her breath visible in a house where it should not have been. Then she heard it, behind her. From deep inside the main hallway, a door unlatching, slow, deliberate. Not the wind, not the house settling, a hand on a knob, turning with purpose. Vera gripped the crowbar and did not move. The click came from the main hallway. 30 feet behind her and 1 floor above, through 2 closed doors and the corridor she had just walked. Vera pressed herself against the wall beside the open panel and killed her flashlight. The darkness in the west wing was total. No windows uncovered, no light from the hidden corridor behind her. Just black and the sound of her own breathing, controlled, steady, 4 counts in, 4 counts out. The way she had trained herself during the worst nights of her marriage, when her husband stood outside the bedroom door, deciding whether to come in. She counted to 10. The sound did not repeat. She turned the flashlight back on, aimed it at the floor, and moved. Not toward the sound, toward the car room. She needed the second exit. The cargo doors had been bricked over, but the brick was new, and new brick meant mortar that had not fully cured in humid conditions. She reached the double doors, slipped through, and crossed to the back wall. Her pry bar found the mortar line on the 3rd try, soft. She could work through it in 20 minutes if she had to. That was her exit. She memorized the path: panel room, corridor, double doors, back wall, 3rd brick row from the floor. Then she went back. Because Vera Caldwell did not run from sounds, not anymore. She retraced her steps through the corridor, past the panel room, through the archway into the main hall. The foyer was exactly as she had left it. Front door closed, deadbolt engaged, cameras recording. No footprints that had not been there before, but the door to the east wing was open. The padlock she had installed that morning hung from the hasp, unlocked, key still inserted. Her key, the one she had put in her back pocket. She reached for her pocket. Empty. Vera stood in the foyer and spoke clearly, loudly, as if addressing someone in the room. "I know you are here. I know you have been here the entire time. I am recording everything, and a copy of this footage is being stored off-site. Whatever you are protecting in this house, I am going to find it. You can either tell me now, or I will find it myself. Either way, I am not leaving." Silence. 10 seconds. 20. Then, from somewhere inside the east wing, a sound that made her grip the crowbar until her knuckles turned white. A camera shutter. One single click. The mechanical kind, not digital. Someone had just taken her photograph. Again. From inside the house, from the wing she had locked. Vera walked to the east wing door. The hallway beyond was short, maybe 15 feet, ending at a staircase that went up. The dust on the floor showed a single set of prints leading up. Fresh. She climbed the stairs. At the top, a landing opened onto a second-floor gallery that overlooked the courtyard through a row of tall, fractured windows. Late afternoon light fell through the cracks in slanted gold bars. The gallery was empty except for a wooden chair positioned in front of the center window, facing outward. Like someone had sat there and watched. On the chair sat a cell phone. Not hers. A cheap prepaid model, screen lit, open to a text message that had been typed but not sent. The message read, "You bought a story that is not yours." Vera picked up the phone. She turned it over. No case, no identifying marks. The message was addressed to her own number, the one she had given to the sheriff's station that morning. Whoever left this phone had access to that number within the last 10 hours. She pressed send. Her own phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She pulled it out. 1 bar of signal, just enough. The message appeared on her screen. "You bought a story that is not yours." From somewhere below her, on the ground floor, deep in the east wing, a door unlatched. Slow, deliberate. The same sound she had heard 20 minutes ago, but closer now. And then, a second sound. Fabric, cloth brushing against a wall. Someone moving through a tight space. Someone inside the walls. Vera looked at the gallery floor. In the dust, near the baseboard, she saw something that sent ice through her chest. A nailhead. Ordinary, unremarkable, except for what it reflected. A tiny red light, no bigger than a pencil point, steady and unblinking. A recording light. Someone had drilled a pinhole camera into the wall and threaded it through to the gallery. The lens was flush with the plaster. She would never have seen it if the angle of the afternoon light had not caught the reflection at precisely this moment. She was being filmed. Not from the outside, from inside the walls. From a system that had been installed long before she arrived. Vera crouched next to the nailhead and spoke directly into it. "I see you. I have your phone. I have your valet tag. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to the county records office and pulling every permit, every deed transfer, and every inspection report filed on this property since 1987. If you want to keep your secrets, you picked the wrong house to sell." She waited. No response. No sound. Just the faint hum of something electronic behind the plaster, cycling, recording, transmitting to somewhere she could not yet reach. She pocketed the prepaid phone and walked downstairs. In the foyer, she stopped. Her body camera, the one she had clipped to her coat that morning, was gone. She had felt its weight all day. She checked every pocket. It was not on the floor. It was not on the stairs. Someone had taken it off her body without her feeling it. While she was standing in the gallery, focused on the nailhead, someone had been close enough to touch her. Vera locked a front door behind her, walked to her truck, started the engine, and sat for a full minute with both hands on the wheel. Then she drove to the Pinecrest Motor Lodge, walked into her room, and found her body camera sitting in the center of the bed. Powered on, playing back audio. Her own voice, looped from earlier that day. "I know you are here. I know you are here. I know you are here." The playback repeated every 14 seconds, like a message, like a mirror, like someone saying, "Yes, we know, and we have been here all along." If someone returned your own words to you on a loop, recorded from a camera they stole off your body, would you go back to that house tomorrow? Tell me in the comments. Because Vera went back, and what she found next was not a warning. It was a name. Kellen Marsh answered on the second ring. Vera kept her voice flat and her words precise. She was sitting in the parking lot of the Brackenridge County Clerk's office at 8:47 a.m., engine running, heater on, the prepaid phone on the passenger seat, and the valet tag in her left hand. "Kellen, I need to ask you about Castile Holdings." Silence. 1 beat. 2. "That is the old ownership entity," he said. "Dissolved years ago. Why?" "Because I found a valet tag inside the property dated 8 months ago with their name on it." Another pause. "Could be an old tag. Those things float around." It was in a car hidden inside the West Wing, a room that was sealed with new brick. A car that has been maintained. The leather was conditioned recently. The trunk had items in it that were not covered in 7 years of dust. Kellen's breathing changed, not louder, faster. "Vera, I think you are reading too much into this. Old properties have old things in them. That is part of the charm." "You mentioned the corridor," Vera said. Dead silence. "I did not tell you about the corridor. I did not tell anyone about the corridor. I found it yesterday behind a panel in the West Wing." "But you already knew it was there." Kellen did not speak for 4 seconds. Then he laughed. It was a short sound, too bright, like someone flipping a light switch in a dark room. "Listen, every realtor in Brackenridge knows that house has strange layouts. The original owner was eccentric. People talk. It does not mean I have been inside." "Have you been inside?" "I showed the property twice, years ago." "To who?" "Vera, I am your realtor, not your employee. If you are having concerns about the property, I can recommend a home inspector." She hung up. Inside the clerk's office, Vera spent the next 3 hours pulling every document she could find on 114 Brackenridge Hollow Road. The deed transfer history showed 4 owners since 1952. The last private owner before the bank was Enzo Castile, who purchased it through the LLC in 2003. The property went into foreclosure in 2016 after Castile disappeared during his 3rd federal investigation. But here was what stopped Vera cold. Between 2016 and the day she purchased it, 12 renovation permits had been filed on the property. 12. For a house no one owned. Each permit was filed by a different contractor, each one withdrawn within 60 days, and each one authorized by the same signature on the county approval line. The signature was illegible, but the title beneath it was clear. Senior Development Liaison, Brackenridge Township. Vera photographed every page. She cross-referenced the contractors online. 9 of them had no web presence at all. No website, no reviews, no phone listing. The other 3 had single-page sites that all used the same template, the same stock photos, and the same mailing address, a P.O. box in Richmond. 12 phantom permits, 12 ghost contractors, all funneled through a single government title that may or may not exist. She drove back to the motel. On her laptop, she searched for Kellen Marsh's realtor profile. The page she had seen 3 days ago, the one with his headshot and listing history, was gone. Not updated. Gone. The URL returned a 404 error. She searched his name on the brokerage site. No results. She searched his license number from the business card he had given her. The state database returned one match, but the license had been listed as voluntarily surrendered 3 days before she closed on the property. Kellen Marsh had surrendered his real estate license before he sold her the house. Vera sat back in the motel chair and stared at the wall. She was not scared. She was recalculating. Every assumption she had made about this transaction was wrong. This was not a neglected property with a strange history. This was an active operation. The house was being used. The permits kept inspectors away by creating a revolving door of authorized access. The realtor was a front, and whoever was inside those walls was not haunting the place. They were working. She opened her email and forwarded every document, every photograph, every screenshot to 3 separate addresses. Her sister in Maryland, a college friend who practiced real estate law in D.C., and a generic Gmail account she had created for exactly this kind of moment. Because Vera had learned during her divorce that the only thing worse than having evidence was having evidence in only one place. At 6:22 p.m., she drove past the mansion one more time before sunset. She did not stop. She did not slow down. But as she passed the front gate, she saw 2 things. A flatbed tow truck idling on the shoulder across the road, engine running, no driver visible. And 2 men standing just inside the gate, not entering the house, not approaching, just standing, shoulder to shoulder, looking at the front face of the building the way buyers look at property they already own. One of them held a tape measure. Vera kept driving. She did not look in the rearview mirror. She pulled into the motel lot, locked her door, and sat in the dark with her phone in her hand. At 6:41 p.m., a text arrived from an unknown number. It said, "The offer is coming, take it." Vera typed back 3 words, "Who are you?" No response. Not that night. Not the next morning. But when she returned to the mansion at dawn, the tow truck was gone, the men were gone, and the front gate was standing wide open, as if someone was inviting her in for the last time. The woman standing on the porch had steel gray hair pulled into a braid so tight it looked like it hurt, and she was holding a clipboard the way a soldier holds a rifle, close to the body, ready to use. Vera had not knocked on anyone's door. She had not asked for help. She had driven to the mansion at 7:15 a.m. with a thermos of gas station coffee and a folder of county records printed at the motel's front desk. And she had found this woman already there, sitting on the top step like she had been waiting since dawn. "Marisol Dane," the woman said. She did not extend her hand. "Retired Code Enforcement Inspector, Brackenridge Township. 31 years. I know every wall, pipe, and permit fraud in this county, and I have been watching you drive past this property for 3 days. You are either very brave or very broke, and based on that truck, I am guessing both." Vera set her thermos on the step. "How did you know I would come back?" Marisol looked at her the way a teacher looks at a student who just asked the right question. "Because whoever is running this operation expected you to leave after the photograph. The fact that you did not means you are useful to me, and I am very useful to you." She opened her clipboard. Inside was a folder of her own. Photographs, permit records, a hand-drawn floor plan of the mansion that was more detailed than anything Vera had found in the county files. And at the bottom, a single sheet of paper with a list of 12 names. The same 12 contractors from the phantom permits. "I flagged these permits 4 years ago," Marisol said. "Filed a report with the township board. The report disappeared. My supervisor told me to let it go. I retired 6 months later. Not because I wanted to." Vera looked at the floor plan. Marisol had marked 3 areas with red circles: the west wing panel, the east wing staircase, and the third location Vera had not yet reached, the top floor, the room behind the amber window. "That room," Marisol said, tapping the red circle. "I got within 10 feet of it during my last inspection in 2019. The temperature in the hallway outside it was 11 degrees warmer than the rest of the floor. That is not insulation. That is equipment. Something up there is running. Has been running for years." Vera picked up her thermos. "Then let us go find out what it is." They entered together. Vera led. Marisol followed with the calm of a woman who had walked through condemned buildings for 3 decades and never once screamed. The foyer was unchanged. The cameras Vera had installed were still recording. The east wing door was closed and locked, and this time the key was in Vera's front pocket, where she could feel it against her thigh with every step. They climbed the main staircase. At the landing, the air shifted. Not cold this time, warm. The kind of warmth that comes from machines left running too long. Vera felt it first in her palms, then on her face, like stepping close to an oven with the door cracked open. The hallway at the top of the stairs ran east to west. 5 doors on the left, 3 on the right. Marisol pointed to the last door on the right. It was different from the others. Newer wood, brass hinges instead of iron, and around the frame, a faint orange glow bled through the gaps. The same amber light Vera had seen from the courtyard every night since she arrived. Vera tried the knob. Locked. Not a deadbolt. A keyhole lock, old-fashioned, the kind that takes a skeleton key. "The keys from the trunk," Vera said. She pulled out the ring she had found in the sedan. 7 keys, no labels. She tried the 3rd one. Nothing. The 5th one. Nothing. The 6th one slid in, turned with a heavy click, and the door swung inward on oiled hinges. The room was small, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet. 1 window, the amber one, and the glass was not stained. It was filtered. Someone had applied a tinted film from the inside, the kind used in photography darkrooms, turning all incoming light that warm gold color that Vera had mistaken for something electrical. But the room was not empty. Against the far wall stood a metal shelving unit, floor to ceiling, bolted to the studs. On the shelves were boxes, not cardboard, fireproof document cases, gray, with numbered locks, 14 of them. And beside the shelving unit, a small table held a device that Vera recognized from her husband's office, a portable hard drive dock with 3 drives inserted, all 3 with blinking green lights. Active, connected to something, drawing power from somewhere in the walls. The wall behind the shelving unit was warm to the touch, not warm like sunlight, warm like circuitry, like a panel of servers running on the other side. Marisol crouched beside the table. She did not touch anything. "This is not storage," she said. "This is a relay station. Someone is using this room to collect and transmit data, and they are running it off the house's original electrical line, which means the power company has been billing someone for this property's usage the entire time it was supposed to be vacant." Vera reached under the windowsill. The outline was there before she saw it, a rectangle of tape, peeling at one edge. She pulled it free. Underneath was a brass key, smaller than the others, with a crest stamped into the head. A compass layered over a rose, the petals forming the cardinal points. She held it up. Marisol stared at it. "That is not a house key," Marisol said. "That is a safe deposit crest, private vault, old money style." From below them, on the main staircase, a sound rose through the floorboards. Footsteps. Not cautious, not quiet, steady and deliberate, climbing toward them. And the rhythm was wrong. Too heavy for one person, too spaced for two people walking together. Vera and Marisol looked at each other. Marisol reached for the door. Vera pocketed the key and grabbed the crowbar she had leaned against the wall. The footsteps stopped. One floor below, right at the landing. Then a voice. Male, calm, familiar. Vera, I know you are up there. We need to talk. And I would rather do it before the people I work for decide talking is no longer the plan. It was Kellen Marsh, and for the first time since she had met him, his voice was not warm. The first document Vera pulled from the fireproof case was a blueprint dated 1974, hand-drawn on drafting paper so old the edges crumbled when she unfolded it. The title block read Brackenridge Hollow, Substructure Amendment, Phase 2, and the architect's name had been blacked out with a marker so thick it bled through to the other side. But the margin notes were untouched. Someone had written in neat block letters, Concealment Corridor, West Access, below grade 14 feet. And beside it, in different ink, a second hand had added, For EC only, no permit, no record. EC, Enzo Castile. Vera held the blueprint under the amber light and traced the corridor with her finger. It matched exactly what she had found behind the panel in the West Wing bedroom. The slope, the concrete walls, the 14-foot descent. Except the blueprint showed more. The corridor did not dead end. It continued beneath the courtyard, turned east under the main foundation, and connected to a second chamber marked only with a small square and the word vault. Marisol stood at the door with her back against the frame, one ear tilted toward the hallway. Kellen had not come upstairs. After his announcement from the landing, Vera had called down a single sentence. Wait in the foyer. Touch nothing. If you leave before I come down, I will hand everything I have found to the FBI by noon. Silence followed, then footsteps retreating, then nothing. Vera opened the second case. Inside was a ledger. Not a spreadsheet, a handwritten accounting book, the kind kept by people who did not trust computers, with columns of dates, dollar amounts, and coded initials. The entries spanned from 2004 to 2015. The amounts ranged from $12,000 to $400,000. And the descriptions were all the same 3 words. Renovation deposit received. The money was not for renovation. Vera knew that now. The 12 phantom permits, the ghost contractors, the revolving door of filed and withdrawn applications. They were a paper trail designed to justify cash moving through the property without triggering a bank audit. The mansion was a laundry. Not for clothes, for money. And someone had kept a perfect record of every dollar that passed through it. She opened the third case, letters, sealed. 12 of them, each in a cream-colored envelope with a name on the front. The first envelope was addressed to Enzo Castile, the second to a name Vera did not recognize, the third to another stranger. She kept flipping. The 7th envelope stopped her cold. The name on the front was Halston, not Vera Halston, Thomas Halston, her ex-husband's father. A man who had run a mid-sized construction firm in Northern Virginia for 30 years before retiring to a golf community in Hilton Head. A man Vera had eaten Thanksgiving dinner with for 17 years. A man who had never once mentioned Brackenridge, Enzo Castile, or a mansion in rural Virginia. Vera did not open the letter. Not yet. She photographed the front of every envelope, then photographed every page of the ledger, then photographed the blueprint from 4 angles. She worked fast. Her hands were steady, but her jaw was clenched so tight her teeth ached. Marisol, she said without looking up. The name on this envelope, Thomas Halston. He is my ex-husband's father. Marisol turned from the door. You are telling me this house is connected to your family. My former family, and they never told me. Vera slid the letters back into the case and locked it. She pocketed the key with the compass rose crest. She stood up and looked around the room one more time. 14 cases, a live data relay, a blueprint showing an underground vault she had not yet entered, and a letter addressed to a man she had carved out of her life 2 years ago. This was not a coincidence. She had not stumbled onto this property by accident. The listing that sat untouched for 7 years. The price that was exactly what she could afford. The realtor who appeared out of nowhere with a warm smile and no verifiable license. Someone had wanted her to buy this house. Someone had placed it in front of her like a baited trap. The question was whether the trap was meant to silence her or to use her. She turned off her flashlight and walked toward the door. "Let us go talk to Kellen." They descended the staircase together. The foyer was bright with morning light. Kellen Marsh stood beside the front door with his hands in his jacket pockets, his face pale, and his warm salesman posture completely gone. He looked like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, deciding whether to jump or climb back. "Start from the beginning," Vera said. "And if you lie to me, I will know. I spent 17 years with a man who lied for a living, and I got very good at hearing the gears turn." Kellen swallowed. He looked at Marisol, then back at Vera. "I was not supposed to sell you the house," he said. "I was supposed to scare you away from it." Outside, through the cracked foyer window, the amber light in the top-floor room went dark for the first time since Vera had arrived. Someone had turned it off. Someone who was watching. Someone who now knew that Kellen Marsh had started talking. Kellen spoke for 11 minutes without stopping, and every word landed like a stone dropped into still water. He was not a real estate agent. He had been one years ago, licensed and legitimate, selling starter homes in the Shenandoah Valley to young couples and retirees. But in 2019, a man he had never met called him on his personal phone and offered him $40,000 to manage a single listing. The Brackenridge mansion. The instructions were specific. Keep the property on the market. Show it to no one who might actually buy it. Maintain the appearance of an active listing. File a new renovation permit every 6 months through a contractor name provided by the caller. And if, by some accident, a real buyer appeared, make the process uncomfortable enough to push them away. For 4 years, Kellen did exactly that. The money arrived in quarterly deposits from an LLC registered in Delaware. He never met his employer in person. Communications came through encrypted messages on a platform that deleted conversations after 24 hours. He asked no questions because the arrangement paid more than his entire annual income. And because the one time he did ask a question, the response was a photograph of his mother's house taken from across the street with a single word beneath it: enough. Then Vera Caldwell walked into the county clerk's office with cash and a look in her eyes that Kellen recognized. The look of someone with nothing left to lose. She did not negotiate. She did not ask for an inspection period. She put down every dollar she had and signed her name. And by the time Kellen tried to insert the usual delays, the transfer was already recorded. "I called the number that night," Kellen said. "I told them a buyer had closed. The response came back in 12 seconds. One word: manage." "Manage," Vera repeated. "That is what they said. So I did what I had been trained to do. I escalated the warnings. The photograph, the envelope, the texts, all of it came from a playbook they gave me in 2019. Intimidation materials, pre-written messages, locations of the cameras already installed in the house. I was supposed to make you feel watched, unsafe, and irrational enough that you would sell the property back to the LLC at a loss." "And the body camera," Vera said. "You took it off me." Kellen's jaw tightened. "No, that was not me. I have never been inside the house while you were in it. Someone else is operating in that building, and they are not part of my instructions. Whoever moved your camera, whoever placed it in your motel room, they are above me. I do not know who they are. I do not know how many of them there are. And that is why I am standing here right now. Because 3 hours ago, I received a new message. It did not say manage. It said close. And in 4 years, I have never received that word before." Vera felt the weight of the Compass Rose key in her pocket. She felt the edges of the valet tag, the prepaid phone, the photographs on her camera roll. She had enough evidence to make a phone call that would bring federal investigators to this property within 48 hours. But she also understood something that Kellen clearly did not. If she made that call now, whoever was running the operation would vanish before anyone arrived. The drives in the amber room would be wiped, the fireproof cases would disappear, the blueprint would turn to ash, and Vera would be left holding a crumbling mansion and a story no one could verify. She needed more. She needed the vault. "Kellen," she said, "the blueprint shows an underground chamber beneath the courtyard. Have you ever been in it?" He shook his head. "I did not know it existed until you just told me." "But your employers do." He stared at the floor. If that vault is what they have been protecting for 4 years, then yes, they know about it, and they will do whatever it takes to keep it sealed. Marisol, who had been silent for the entire conversation, spoke for the first time. "Then we do not seal it. We open it in daylight with witnesses, and we make sure every piece of paper inside it reaches someone who cannot be paid off." Vera looked at Kellen. "You have 2 choices. Help me access that vault and testify to everything you just told me, or walk out that door and hope the people who sent you the word close are more forgiving than I think they are." Kellen did not move for a long time. He looked at the front door. He looked at Vera. He looked at Marisol, who held her clipboard like a verdict. "What do you need from me?" he said. Vera reached into her pocket and pulled out the prepaid phone he had left on the chair in the gallery. "First, you are going to send a message back. Tell them you are handling it. Tell them the buyer is scared and negotiating a sellback. Buy me 48 hours. Kellen took the phone. His hands were shaking. He typed the message. He pressed send. Vera watched the screen. 3 dots appeared. Then a reply. 1 word. Confirmed. Vera put the phone back in her pocket. She looked at Marisol. "Tomorrow morning, County Courthouse. I am filing everything." She walked to her truck, started the engine, and pulled out of the courtyard. In her rear-view mirror, she could see Kellen still standing in the doorway, a man caught between 2 machines, both of them grinding and nowhere left to hide. When she reached the motel, she locked the door, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened the letter addressed to Thomas Halston. Inside was a single page, handwritten, dated 2011. It read, "Thomas, you promised the corridor would stay closed. You promised the money was clean. You lied about both. If this letter reaches you, it means someone finally opened the room I told you would stay locked forever. You owe that person the truth. Whether you give it to them is between you and whatever is left of your conscience." It was signed with a name Vera had never seen, Margaret Castile, Enzo Castile's wife, and at the bottom, one more line. "The girl who finds this will need proof. It is in the vault. All of it. The girl, not the person, not the buyer, the girl." As if Margaret Castile had known, 14 years ago, exactly who would end up standing in that amber room with a key in her hand and nowhere left to run. Vera Caldwell walked into the Brackenridge County Courthouse at 8:02 a.m., carrying a brown envelope that weighed less than a pound and contained enough paper to dismantle a 14-year operation. She did not wait in line. She walked directly to the records window, placed the envelope on the counter, and asked for the supervising clerk by name. A woman named Donna Prescott appeared from a back office, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, coffee in hand, clearly unprepared for what was about to land on her desk. Vera laid out the documents one at a time. The blueprint with margin notes referencing concealed corridors. The ledger showing 11 years of cash deposits disguised as renovation fees. Photocopies of 12 permits filed by contractors who did not exist, all approved by a township title that had no corresponding employee in any public payroll record. Screenshots of Kellen Marsh's surrendered license, time-stamped 3 days before the property sale, and photographs of the amber room, the fireproof cases, and the active hard drive still blinking green inside a house that had been officially vacant for 7 years. Donna Prescott set her coffee down and did not pick it up again. "I am requesting an emergency inspection of 114 Brackenridge Hollow Road," Vera said. Under Section 47 of the County Building Code, any evidence of unpermitted structural modification to a residential property requires mandatory investigation within 72 hours. These documents prove that modifications were made without proper permits, that the permits on file are fraudulent, and that the property contains active electronic equipment connected to an unknown power source. I am also requesting that all records related to this address be placed under administrative hold to prevent deletion or alteration. Donna looked at the papers. Then she looked at Vera. "Ma'am, who are you?" "I am the owner of that property. I purchased it 26 days ago, and since then, I have been photographed without my consent, surveilled by cameras installed inside the walls, had personal property removed from my body, and received direct threats from individuals connected to the previous ownership entity. I have filed a police report. Case number is on the last page." The room had gone quiet. 2 clerks at adjacent windows had stopped typing. A man in a gray suit waiting by the copy machine turned his head and did not turn it back. Donna picked up the blueprint. She studied the margin notes. Her expression changed the way a doctor's expression changes when the scan comes back worse than expected. Controls alarm. "I need to make a call," she said. "I understand," Vera said, "but before you do, I want you to know that every document on this counter has been duplicated and sent to 3 separate locations outside this county. If any of these records are altered, lost, or delayed, the copies will be delivered to the State Attorney General's office and 2 national news organizations within 24 hours. Donna looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Wait here." She disappeared into the back office. Vera stood at the counter with her hands flat on the wood, breathing evenly, watching the door. Marisol arrived at 8:30 a.m. She brought her own folder. 31 years of inspection records, personal notes, and a written statement describing the township's failure to investigate her 2019 report on the Brackenridge property. She placed it beside Vera's envelope without a word and stood at her shoulder like a wall. At 9:15 a.m., Donna returned with 2 people. A deputy from the sheriff's office, not Ruiz, a woman named Tate with sharp eyes and no small talk, and a man in a state-issued jacket who introduced himself as a field investigator from the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. They asked Vera to repeat everything. She did. Same facts, same order, same level voice. When the investigator asked how she had accessed the amber room, she held up the key ring from the sedan and said, "The keys were inside a vehicle concealed within the property I legally own. I used them to open a door inside my own house." The investigator wrote something down. Deputy Tate asked if Vera had felt physically threatened at any point. Vera said yes. She described the body camera theft, the motel playback, the text messages, the 2 men at the gate with the tape measure. At 10:08 a.m., the investigator made a call from the hallway. Vera could not hear the conversation, but she could see his face through the glass partition. Whatever the person on the other end said made him stand up straighter. He came back in. "Miss Caldwell, I am authorizing an emergency inspection of the property effective immediately. I am also requesting that the sheriff's office secure the premises until our team can conduct a full structural and electrical assessment. Based on what you have provided, there is sufficient cause to believe this property has been used for purposes inconsistent with its residential designation." Vera exhaled, not relief, not yet, just the release of a breath she had been holding for 26 days. She walked out of the courthouse into the October sunlight. The air smelled like fallen leaves and cold stone. Marisol followed her to the parking lot and stood beside her truck. "You did it," Marisol said. "Not yet," Vera said. "The vault is still sealed. And whoever turned off that amber light knows we are coming." She opened her truck door. On the driver's seat, placed with the same careful precision as the first envelope in the foyer, was a new envelope. White, clean. Her name in the same handwriting. Inside was a single screenshot. Her bank login page. Her username filled in. The password field blinking, waiting. Someone was not just inside her house. They were inside her life. Her accounts, her digital footprint, every wall she had built since the divorce was being mapped and measured by someone she had never met. Vera folded the screenshot. She put it in her pocket next to the Compass Rose key and the letter from Margaret Castile. Then she got in the truck and drove toward the mansion, because the vault was still waiting. And whatever was inside it had been waiting even longer. The front gate was open. The courtyard was empty. The burgundy sedan that had sat in the same spot for 7 years was gone, towed in the night, leaving a rectangle of dead grass where its shadow had kept the weeds from growing. Vera parked her truck and sat for a moment. Deputy Tate's cruiser pulled in behind her. The state investigator's sedan followed. Marisol arrived last, driving a truck older than Vera's, its bed loaded with document boxes she had been collecting for 4 years. They entered together. The mansion felt different. Not quieter, emptier, as if whatever presence had lived inside the walls had packed a bag and left through a door that did not show on any blueprint. The cameras Vera had installed were still recording, but the feeling of being watched was gone, replaced by something heavier, the silence of a place that knows it has been found out. They climbed to the amber room first. The fireproof cases were still on the shelves, but the hard drives were gone. The table was bare. The power cables that had run into the wall had been cut clean, 6 inches from the outlet, and the outlet itself had been filled with quick-set concrete. Whoever had operated the relay station had dismantled it in the hours between Kellen's message and this morning. Deputy Tate photographed the room. The investigator measured the wall temperature, still warm. The equipment behind the plaster was still running, but the access point had been sealed. "We will need a team to open that wall," the investigator said, "probably tomorrow." Vera did not wait for tomorrow. She led them downstairs, through the main hall, past the west wing archway, into the corridor she had walked 3 times before. She stopped at the second bedroom. The panel was still open, the hidden corridor still exhaling cold air from below. Marisol went first this time. She carried a heavy flashlight and moved with the confidence of a woman who had crawled through condemned basements since before Vera was born. Vera followed. Deputy Tate stayed at the entrance, radio in hand, relaying their position to someone outside. The corridor sloped 14 feet, exactly as the blueprint had shown. The walls were rough concrete. The floor was smooth, poured in a single layer, no seams. At the bottom, the corridor turned east and ran flat for another 40 feet beneath the courtyard. Vera counted her steps. 37. Then the corridor ended at a steel door. Not a wooden door with a lock. A vault door. Commercial grade. The kind used in bank safe deposit rooms, with a combination dial and a deadbolt mechanism that required a key. Vera pulled out the compass rose key. She inserted it into the deadbolt. It turned. The mechanism released with a sound like a bone popping back into its socket. The combination dial remained. Vera stared at it. 4 digits. "Try the year on the blueprint," Marisol said. 1974. Vera turned the dial. 1974. The wheel clicked. The door released. Vera pulled the handle, and the vault opened with a rush of pressurized air that smelled like old ink and cold steel. The room was 8 feet by 10 feet, climate-controlled, dry, lit by a battery-powered emergency light mounted on the ceiling that flickered on the moment the door broke its seal. Inside were 3 filing cabinets, a small wooden desk, and a leather chair that still held the shape of whoever had last sat in it. On the desk was a single folder, closed, with a note taped to the front. The handwriting was the same as the letter Vera had found upstairs. Margaret Castile. The note read, "If you are reading this, it means they tried to scare you first. Good. Now you are ready." Vera opened the folder. Inside were 6 pages. Account statements from a bank in the Cayman Islands. Wire transfers totaling $11.4 million, routed through Castile Holdings between 2004 and 2015. Recipient names, dates, authorization, signatures. 3 of the signatures belonged to township officials. 1 belonged to a sitting state legislator, and 1, dated 2011, on a transfer of $600,000, labeled construction consultation fee, belonged to Thomas Halston. Vera stared at her ex-father-in-law's name. His handwriting, the same careful block letters she had seen on birthday cards for 17 years. She closed the folder. She did not cry. She did not sit down. She turned to Marisol, who who was standing in the doorway with her flashlight aimed at the filing cabinets, her face lit half in shadow and half in that cold emergency glow. "There is more in those cabinets," Vera said. "Every dollar, every name, every lie this house was built to hide." Marisol nodded. "Then we carry it out, all of it, into the daylight." They spent the next 2 hours emptying the vault. Deputy Tate called for a second unit. The state investigator requested a forensic team from Richmond. By noon, the courtyard was lined with evidence boxes, each one tagged and photographed, each one representing a thread in a web that stretched from Brackenridge to Richmond to Washington to an island bank account that had been growing quietly for over a decade. Kellen Marsh arrived at 1:15 p.m., not in his Realtors clothes, in jeans and a wrinkled shirt, looking like a man who had not slept. He walked to Deputy Tate and said 5 words. "I am ready to talk." He sat in the back of the cruiser and gave a full statement. Names, dates, the encrypted messaging platform, the quarterly deposits, the photograph of his mother's house, everything. By 3 p.m., the property had been placed under federal hold pending investigation. The Township Board had been notified. The state legislator's name had been forwarded to the Attorney General's office, and Thomas Halston's signature on a Cayman Islands wire transfer was sitting in an evidence bag on Deputy Tate's front seat. Vera stood alone in the courtyard at sunset. The mansion rose behind her, its windows dark, its amber light extinguished, its secrets pulled from behind every wall and carried out in boxes. The iron gate was closed. The gravel was quiet. A bird sang somewhere in the tree line, and the air smelled like autumn and something she had not felt in years: freedom. Not the kind that comes from escape, the kind that comes from standing still in a place that tried to break you and finding out it could not. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the compass rose key. She turned it over in her fingers. Then she walked to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped inside one last time. In the foyer, in the same spot where she had found the first envelope, she set the key on the marble, not because she was giving it up, because she was choosing what to carry forward. She had entered this house as a woman with nothing. She was leaving it as the woman who cracked open a 14-year cover-up because she refused to be frightened by men who thought control was the same thing as power. She pulled out her phone. 2 bars, enough. She called her sister in Maryland. When her sister answered, Vera said, "I found what they were hiding, all of it. And I need you to know something. I am okay. I am more than okay. I am the one who opened the door." She hung up and stood in the foyer for a long time, listening to the house. It was quiet now. Not the silence of a place holding secrets. The silence of a place that had finally been allowed to tell the truth. Vera locked the front door behind her. She walked to her truck. She turned the key, and as she pulled out of the courtyard, she allowed herself one glance in the rearview mirror. The mansion stood still against the October sky, its windows dark, its stone catching the last of the light. On the passenger seat, her phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. It read, "The county just froze all 12 permit accounts. Richmond is sending a forensic auditor Monday. And the State Housing Board is recommending the property be designated as an evidentiary site. You did it, Vera." Vera read the message twice. Then she typed back, "We did it. And we are not done." Because the vault was open, the names were on record. The money trail led to offices and boardrooms and men in suits who had spent 14 years believing that a house full of secrets would stay quiet forever. They were wrong. Because they forgot the one thing that every locked door eventually meets: someone with nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. If you are watching this and carrying something heavy, a betrayal, a loss, a door someone locked to keep you out of your own life, remember this. Sometimes the thing that was taken from you is not the thing that defines you. Sometimes it is what you find on the other side of the fear. And sometimes the house that was supposed to break you is the one that gives you back your name. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. We post stories that inspire, that challenge, and that remind you that the fight is always worth it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment telling me about a time you stood your ground when everyone told you to walk away. Your story might be the one that gives someone else the courage to stay. And if Vera's journey taught you anything, let it be this: the strongest lock in the world is no match for a woman who has already survived the worst and decided she is done being afraid. We will see you in the next one.